Welcome to My Morning Cup, a podcast produced by Costa Media Advisors, brought to you by Rock Point Bank. Rock Point Bank is from Chattanooga for Chattanooga. My Morning Cup, where we have interesting conversations with genuine people. I'm Mike Costa, your host. My guest this week is Melissa Blevins, the president and CEO of the Chattanooga Area Food Bank. Melissa, before we delve into just how cold a Wisconsin winter really is, let me ask, what's in your morning cup?
Coffee, of course, with lots of good, yummy, sugary sweetness.
Yeah, you mix that concoction at home?
I do. I'm usually first place I go when I wake up is straight to that coffee pot and turn it on.
You drink it throughout the day?
No. I'm about a 1 cup and done. And
One cup
always Folgers.
Always, why Folgers?
That's just what I grew up drinking. It's just what I know and love. And I usually avoid coffee shops for that very reason, is I just love a good cup of Folgers in the morning.
Well, I'm so glad you're here. Obviously, Chattanooga Food Bank does tremendous work, and we're going to get to that. But we want to start where I always start, which is in the beginning. And I talked about Wisconsin winter. So tell us about growing up in Wisconsin.
Oh, I had the best childhood. Growing up on a dairy farm, 3 brothers, a half sister. We spent a lot of time working in the barns, in the fields. We raised cattle, we raised chickens, we raised pigs. We grew our own gardens. We harvested everything you could think of in the fields to make a living. And every fall we filled up the root cellar with lots of jars of things for the winter.
Where in Wisconsin is this?
A little town called Spooner. It's a northwest corner of the state. I tell people you drive through drive across the map, through the end of the map, through a cow pasture, and that's where I grew up. And Dad's still on the farm today.
Northwest corner of the state, so that's way
up there. Yeah, about 80 miles south of Lake Superior.
Oh, my goodness. So your winters were cold.
Winters were cold, yeah. But when you're growing up, you didn't know any different. You bundled up, you went outside, you played in the snow, you built snow forts, you rode snowmobiles, you ice fished. I mean, we dug holes in the ice and fished in the winter. Like, now I can't even wrap my brain around that concept.
You know, that's something I've always seen that I thought that would be cool to do once.
It's cool, literally.
Yeah.
But, I think in 2025, they have these pretty amazing ice houses.
I've seen
with
that.
Heaters, and they've made it pretty comfortable out there as much as they can.
And I don't know if I could wrap my head around sitting in an ice house with a heater on a block of ice thinking I might fall in.
Well, the most of those lakes in the wintertime, you're talking about 2 feet of ice. And
really?
We race cars across them. I've seen all sorts of crazy stuff. They have to get pretty creative in Wisconsin to stay entertained in the winter.
So you and your siblings, what would you have chores you had to do on the farm?
Oh, yeah. We grew up on a dairy farm, so we milked in the morning before school. We milked in the evening.
What time is that?
5 o'clock. I just grew up with brothers, so I didn't always have the hard work, but I was always entangled in there with them, trying to find something to get in trouble with.
Were you in the birth order?
I was the baby.
Okay. So they were also looking out after you, too.
Yeah. They definitely look out after me. And my oldest brother, he's still my hero.
Yeah. So I know you eventually moved to Tennessee. Kind of go through that, because you were in Wisconsin until what? You were 11?
Yeah. My parents divorced, as many of our kids have experienced. Yeah. And my mom relocated down here to the Marion County area. And I was a mama's girl, and really wanted to be with my mom. And so at 11 years old, she came to Wisconsin and just picked me up. Left my brothers there. We came back, and about 3 months later, my middle brother came as well, and that gave us an opportunity to grow up with my mom and a stepdad in South Pittsburgh.
Was there a family connection to Tennessee that got your mom from Wisconsin?
Believe it or not, my mom was hitchhiking and met a truck driver from South Pittsburgh, and she married him. So,
oh, wow. Yeah,
that's a crazy story. A lot of people don't believe that, but that was the truth. And unfortunately, he's passed away since then, and so has she. But that's what brought us to Tennessee, and eventually I made it home as well.
So you're 11, you're in Wisconsin, and you're doing all these things with your brothers. I imagine besides the chores, you had some times that you were just running around the farm. What were some of the things that you did to keep yourself busy?
Well, we used to play a lot. We built 3-story tree houses. We would go down to the river. We had rope swings. And we'd go to my grandma's a lot on the weekend. She lived on the lake, so she had the boats. I mean, those were boats back then. You had to row them. There were no motors.
When you're talking about the lake, are you talking about one of the Great Lakes or?
Well, the lake to me was the only lake I knew. Was my grandma on my mom's side had a resort and a tavern on the lake.
Really?
Pretty typical northern Wisconsin. She had 6 cabins, and that's how she made her living. Was we'd fill the cabins with people from Minnesota and Illinois, and fill the tavern in the evenings, and you could go up there and get a soda, a pop, or a candy bar for a quarter. So a lot of the summer weekends we'd spend up there.
What was the name of it?
Island Lake. Island. The lake was Island Lake. The Red Top Resort was the original name.
And was that the name of the tavern too?
Yeah, it was circa 1949 she started it.
Is it still standing?
It is. It is. The tavern is still there. We've kept the property in the family. My first cousin put a new home on the front of it. And myself and my brother, we have one of the cabins still. My other cousin has a cabin, and every summer the family convenes upon it. Sometimes 40, 50 of us.
Wow.
We held a wedding there last year. We had over 120 people there. And it's still very simple. There's nothing luxurious about it.
That's the best kind.
There's still outhouses.
Yeah.
I mean, there's 5 or 6 docks, and my grandson spends a lot of time in the end of the dock fishing all summer long.
So you're growing up in that. You're doing the hard work on the dairy farm, and you're having those kind of things. What did that teach you as a young girl before you moved?
Oh, gosh. The value of hard work. I think I've always saw firsthand my parents work incredibly hard to make ends meet. My mom would work at the farm and then would go cook at a local restaurant.
So she had 2 jobs, 3 jobs.
Yeah, and I mean there was never enough time to get everything done between the crops and all the animals, and then taking care of all of us kids. And it was just really, I mean, learning hard work and the value of getting things done, and the value of problem solving. You know, there was, it was never a living that made anybody in our family well off. We just struggled, but we just kept going, and we just tried to figure out every day, every year, every crop season, how do we keep going?
Does growing up on a farm like that create more of a tightness with your siblings and your family, do you think?
Oh, I think absolutely. I mean, I don't remember ever a weekend that I was at a friend's house spending the night. We were always home. If we were anywhere, we were with our cousins.
Yeah.
On my mom's side or my dad's side, or they were over. It was nothing for people just to pop in and walk in your door. You didn't call and make an appointment or schedule time to be together. You know, family just showed up, or you just got in the car and go for a ride, and we'd just end up at some family member's house.
Yeah. And you said that, like a lot of people, your parents divorced and your mom ends up in Tennessee. Can you talk a little bit about being that 11-year-old and getting to Jasper, Tennessee, and going, oh my God, we're not in Wisconsin anymore?
Yeah, well, I remember my first day in 6th grade in South Pittsburgh at the school. I was this anomaly, if you will. I talked really fast. I didn't, I'm from Wisconsin. We talk fast. We got stuff to say. We get it done, and we go on.
Well, it's so cold outside.
And so it was culture shock. I mean, I grew up in a very small community. Most of the people looked like me. Mm-hmm. I mean, all of the people looked like me, frankly. There was no diversity. Mm-hmm. And moving to South Pittsburgh and going to school and meeting people of different races and ethnicities, and this Southern drawl thing, like they wouldn't let me read out loud in school because no one could understand me. I mean, they literally told me to stop talking because I read so fast that nobody could hear me.
So you're like 12, 13 by that point. How do you respond to that? I mean, do you get offended or hurt?
I think it really, for me, it was real challenging for my confidence because in Wisconsin, I was with the same kids for my entire life, and then coming to Tennessee and not knowing anyone in the schools. It was really hard, and I think it's hard for a lot of girls in particular in those middle school years to just try to fit in. And I always felt like I was kind of an outsider. And, you just figure it out. I tried to play sports and things to try to get to know other kids and to really figure out how to be strong in school. Academically, I was strong. Like I always was a straight A student. I don't think I missed a day of school my first 5 years of elementary school. But then I went to work at 14. Our family was really struggling. And at 14 years old back then, you could work in some jobs. And so I got my first job at 14 in a little dairy bar in South Pittsburgh called Stone's Dairy Bar.
Is it still around?
Well, no, it's not. Family's still around, but Margie, the lady who ran it, she was kind of the matriarch of the family. She passed away many years ago, and eventually they had closed the restaurant.
So serving up ice cream and things like that?
Yeah, meat and three.
Meat and three.
Oh, yeah, and Miss Margie made everything from scratch, and gosh, it was good food.
So what were you doing?
Waitressing for $1.75 an hour.
Oh, wow.
I don't think that rates went up much over the few decades either.
No, not at all, because that's the old, well, you're making tips too. And it really doesn't do much for you at that point, does it?
It doesn't, but for a 14-year-old, it was some spending money and gas money. And, of course, my mom let me drive back then, too, so I'm not sure that I should be telling that story. But I had a little motorcycle, a little Yamaha 80. We'd fill that thing up on the weekends, ride all over the dirt roads in the New Hope over there.
So you obviously went to work. You talked about playing some sports and all. What were some of the extracurriculars you were doing in those teenage years?
Oh, goodness. I loved basketball. That was the thing. I tried out for the cheerleading squad one time. No, I didn't get that. I'm not coordinated to this day. Still don't know my left arm from my right foot. So I really wanted to be a cheerleader. I thought that would be the cool thing to do, seeing where all the pretty girls hung out. But that wasn't my past. So, but I spent a lot of time with my brothers.
Yeah.
You know, whatever my big brother was doing, I wanted to tag along with him and his cute little friends.
Yeah. So you mentioned your brothers. Did they come down to Tennessee, or was this in Wisconsin when you were?
Just one of them. One of them came to Tennessee.
You mentioned that.
Yep. We both came in 1983, about 4 months apart. Was that the one
closest to you in age?
Yeah, he was the one closest to me. So he came here, and we were very close growing up. And so it was always fun to hang out with him and his friends.
Yeah. Were there other jobs beyond the waitressing?
I spent a lot of years young, worked for that dairy bar, worked for Shoney's, worked for Cracker Barrel, worked for Ryan's Steakhouse for a hot minute. That was always good money, and it was easy. I made a lot of good tips back in the day in the restaurant industry, but it was every weekend. Yeah.
You didn't give you much of a social life, did it?
No, it kind of slows that social life down.
One of the things you mentioned to me was you picking tomatoes.
Yeah. I had a stepdad that considered himself entrepreneurial. So every year he had a get rich plan, and unfortunately none of them really worked. But one year we decided we were going to plant tomatoes, and we planted a lot of tomatoes and spent a good summer picking tomatoes in my 7th grade summer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was not fun. But I kept a salt shaker in my pocket because you get that really good one, and you just salt it up and eat it right off the vine.
Yeah. Were you able to sell it? What was the plan to sell them on the side of the road?
Well, I think he had this idea we'd sell them to grocery stores and stuff, and I don't think we were able to sell them. I don't remember us ever thinking, gosh, we just got rich off that plan. I just remember my mom going, okay, Bobby, what's next?
Yeah. So there was always something going on where you're working and focused on just helping the family out. Yeah.
I think I was always saw how hard my mom worked when she worked 2 and 3 jobs and turned 16 and was working at Shoney's. It was the first Shoney's there in the area down in Kimball, and helped open that store. And it was a lot of fun. Was making great tips, but was just never enough. I worked all the money I made really paid my car payment and paid for what I needed. And Mom did the best she could. I was a sophomore in high school. Our house burned down, and so we had to start over.
Oh my goodness!
And we were renting. We didn't have much anyway, and we were just hardworking families, like a lot of our families around here, just check to check every week.
Well, and if I can ask, what caused the house to burn down, or do you know?
It was electrical. It was an older house. It was my second day of my sophomore year, and I got a phone call to come to the office, the principal's office, and we had lost everything.
One of the folks we had on about a year ago, Bob Culkeen at WTCI, grew up in Massachusetts. Similar story. In high school, their house caught fire too. So if you can talk a little bit about what that does to you, how that affects you as a teenager, as a student, seeing that happen in your family.
Yeah. That was. We didn't have much, and to lose everything we had, all my childhood mementos gone. I just remember going to Walmart, and I don't know if the churches or who came together quickly to give us some money to go buy clothes so I could go to school the next day. And I remember staying in this small little local hotel, piled in there with my brother and my stepdad. And I just remember thinking, gosh, we didn't have much anyway. Now we have nothing. And I don't know how my mom did it, because we never had enough.
Yeah.
She was always trying to pay the bills and make ends meet. We never went hungry or anything like that. But
it was a struggle.
It was a struggle. It was hard. And, I think that's the first time I saw community come together to help us.
Yeah.
The churches rallied around us, even though we weren't active in a local church. Our neighbors and our churches came together, and we somehow pulled through it.
And we're going to get to the food bank in a little bit, but that's got to be with you today, those experiences.
Yeah, I think so many of us grow up with adverse childhood experiences, and they shape how we work. They shape how we live. They shape how we think about things. And for me, I just remember people helping us.
Yeah.
And that feeling of like, we're going to be okay.
What a thing to really latch onto in terms of a memory.
Yeah.
The positive aspect of it. And talk about this as much as you want to. You became a mother at a young age too.
I did. I know people often say, you're just too young to have a grandson that's 10. I'm like, well, that prom got me. So junior prom, high school, as most young adults, thinking we're going to have the greatest night of our lives. We go out, we go to prom, I have a great time, and unfortunately probably didn't make the best decision afterwards. And 9 months later, I became a mother.
And you're 17.
I'm 17 years old at the time, and single mom.
Right.
The gentleman, unfortunately, wasn't able to step up to the plate and help me. But my mom did. My mom was amazing. When I explained to her that I was pregnant with child, she was 100% all in. I'll help you. I'll support you. Whatever you need to do to raise this baby, I will walk with you. And she did. She was a wonderful mother and a wonderful grandma. But it was a huge barrier and a challenge to overcome from a family, blue-collar family, working hard, and all of a sudden now we've got an extra mouth to feed. And, oh, by the way, I'm 17. And, it was incredibly difficult. But the end of my junior high school year, my guidance counselor said, Melissa, you only need 2 classes to graduate. You could graduate in the summer and then have that baby. And I was like, oh, didn't think about that. So I sacrificed my senior year of high school. Yeah. Took my senior year in summer school as with child, and then immediately started Chattanooga State. So I still had 5-6 months before she was born. So I took a fall semester at Chattanooga State to I knew I needed a degree. I needed education.
Get ahead of it.
No one in my family had ever went to college and graduated. Yeah. And I knew, based on everything I had read and researched, that was the only way to financial stability for my family, was for me to do that. So
you were the first in your family to graduate from college, and you're expecting child, and you enroll in college. What kind of pressure is this putting on a kid? You being the kid.
Well, working full-time at Shoney's and trying to raise my daughter and going to school, carrying a full load at Chattanooga State, because you had to have a full schedule to be able to get financial aid. And you're
living in Jasper, right?
Yeah.
So you're commuting in
every day.
45 minutes, is it?
Yeah. My mom and I would ride with her before I had a car, because she worked on Amnicola Highway, interesting enough, at Coca-Cola, and I would drop her off. I'd go to Chattanooga State, work, go to my classes all day and pick her up, and then we'd go get the baby. And it was incredibly challenging, and I didn't always make it. I started and stopped college I don't know how many times. It wasn't until I was 3 weeks before I turned 40 to graduate, actually with a 4-year degree. So 23 years to graduate. But again, I think that's a message that I'll share with others, because don't ever give up.
That's persistence.
You're just one of these days I'm going to get that degree. And even if it's, I'm already successful in my career, I did it. I wanted to accomplish something. So,
what were you studying at Chat State?
Well, I initially started marketing because I was working for Shoney's at the time, and they were opening new locations, and they wanted me to travel with them and help them open new stores. And then that didn't quite pan out. And then I thought, well, I'm really good with numbers, so I'll do accounting. So I transferred to an accounting major, which I really love numbers to this day, but I love people more.
Yeah.
And the idea of just sitting behind a computer all day, just grinding through spreadsheets and numbers was awful. So I just thought, well, what if I got a general leadership degree, a management degree? And so eventually and that's how I landed at Covenant College in the night studies program, just to get a business management degree.
So you're at Chattanooga State and you graduate Covenant years later. So
decades later.
Talk a little bit about the in-between, where life took you and what, some of the jobs you had along the way and some of those things that it taught you. Because, and I'm just thinking about how I want to put that. You've had to not just work hard, but scramble quite a bit to just kind of stay a step ahead of everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Working in the restaurant industry is always, there's a lot of turnover in that industry, and you always think, well, I can go somewhere else and make a little bit more, get better shifts. So I worked for Cracker Barrel for a few years. They were a great company to work for. In fact, I worked for them twice later on after I got married. But at one point I was working at Cracker Barrel, and I got a job in the grocery industry, working in the deli bakery. It's like, because it was food, and I liked working with food, and learned how to decorate cakes and all the fun stuff there. And so I was working at a grocery store that's no longer here called Food Max up on Gun Barrel Road, and had working at the Cracker Barrel over off of Shallowford there. And then Kmart needed a night shift stock person, and I thought, well, I could do that through the holiday season to help, maybe buy some Christmas presents for my daughter. So at one point I was working 2 and 3 jobs, and I was just never seeing my daughter. Like, my mom was helping, but when I was with her, I was always tired. And I thought, what could I do that would be closer to home, that I could maybe make more of a steady paycheck? Tips were great when they were great, but when there were nights when you'd leave with $6, $7 in your pocket because you got cut, they weren't busy. You didn't even make enough to pay for a babysitter. So I went to work in manufacturing, finally got a job. I applied, didn't have any experience, but a company called Bowie of America hired me down in Bridgeport, Alabama. And I think my first job was $9.75 an hour, but they hired me on night shift to run this machine where you take yarn and you set it through this really high temperature tunnels, and it does something to the yarn to make it prepare for carpet. And I was like, man, like, the good money at that time, $9, $10 an hour was great money. Steady shift. It was shift work. So you work 3 days, off 3, work 2, off 2.
So you're seeing your daughter more?
Yeah. I was home more, because you're working 12-hour shifts, and they were night shifts, so I could sleep some while she was at preschool or daycare and stuff. So that seemed to be a good fit. And, I liked it. It didn't take long to figure it out, and 6 months in, they offered me the job to drive the forklift.
Ooh.
And I was like, whoa, I've made it big time now. They're going to pay me more money. And I thought, man, this is what I want to do. I like manufacturing. I like process. I like making things more efficient and effective. So they put me into the training program where I would train new employees coming in, and I just enjoyed that. I love working with people and trying to make it better. But you couldn't get to day shift. I mean, there was no turnover back then, so it took years to get to a day shift.
Is there any point where you're getting discouraged? I mean, because everything's a fight at this point.
It is, and I think it wasn't until 5 years ago that I just kind of one day had to tell myself, Melissa, you can stop fighting. You made it.
Yeah.
And that's just such a relief, because I think I fought and clawed my way up the career ladder, because manufacturing is a tough place for women.
Oh, yeah.
So my first leadership role, I remember sitting down at the first conference table. I just got a big promotion. I was driving to Dalton for Bowie at the time. And I sat down at the first leadership meeting. I was the only woman. And I was like, whoa. And it felt like that. It felt very isolating. It felt like I was the minority, which I was. Yeah. And I realized pretty quickly in leadership, and even in that manufacturing setting, that it was going to be a tough fight. So gloves on, you just fight and claw your way into the top, into roles that you think you deserve and earn. And, at one point I had a boss tell me that I needed to quit thinking with my heart and start thinking with my head, that I'd never be successful in the business if I didn't put the business first and not the people first.
You said something interesting. 5 years ago, you told yourself it's okay to stop fighting. But doesn't that always live with you? That not that you're going to keep fighting, but all those experiences that you got to pull back on or reach back and relive those. every day, I would think.
Yeah, I do think a lot of us are in survival mode.
Yeah.
And we just are doing our best to survive, whether it's financially, emotionally, spiritually. And I think that the time at Covenant College that really helped me find my purpose in life, and then landing at the food bank to be able to live out that purpose,
Yeah.
shifted my mentality from that fight or flight mode. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not surviving anymore. I'm actually thriving, and what a beautiful blessing that is.
Yeah, and that is a mindset thing too. From fight to thrive. How did you end up at Covenant? Because you said it took decades to graduate from college. So kind of fill in those blanks if you don't mind. I know you were working, but what led you to Covenant?
Well, I had started and stopped at Chattanooga State several times, and really knew that, again, I wanted that degree. I was going to figure it out, and through those years of trying to take care of my family, I had a marriage and a divorce. That also, another thing to survive, and another thing to start over and kind of rebuild your all of your spiritual and financial wellness. And I decided I was going to go back to Covenant College. I had moved to back to Wisconsin in 2006. My daughter was hitting those teenage years, and with a recent divorce, and she was struggling. I was struggling, and we decided that we would move back to Wisconsin, where my family is, for that family support. And so I sold my home, went to work for a manufacturing company up there in northern Wisconsin. But ironically, I got out of the textile industry and started in the food industry, which was
back to food.
Back to food I go, and it was an onion ring manufacturing facility.
I love onion rings.
And I remember thinking, I'm going to work anywhere but that stinking onion ring factory, because you could smell it all over town. My mom worked there, and she'd come home and smell like onions, and I'm like, bleh, I don't want to work there. But it was one of the greatest experiences I ever had. It was a great work culture, wonderful leadership team. They paid incredibly well. They cared for their employees really well. And I just remember thinking, when I hired there, the way they made me feel and welcomed, that I want to do that for new employees. So I only made it 18 months because Wisconsin has this thing called winter, and I wasn't down for that. So my daughter had turned 18. She moved back to Tennessee, and so I followed quickly in 2008 back, and was just, trying to figure out, after the recession, things were hard here. Manufacturing had been hit particularly hard, but I jumped back into manufacturing in Dalton, and just decided it was time to go back to school. So I found the Covenant College Quest program at the time, and decided that I would finish that out because I could work full-time and still go to school at night and be with like-minded adults.
And describe the Quest program for everyone who doesn't.
Yeah, I think it's Belhaven now, but it's an adult studies program for older adults, not older necessarily my age, but not young college students who are working full-time, have families that want to graduate but still have to work. And you can... For me, it was, I think I only needed like 18 credits to graduate with my 4-year degree. And so Covenant said, we can help you get that, and you can graduate in a year.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was wonderful, wonderful experience. Interesting enough, I never stepped foot on the Covenant College campus on Lookout.
Did you not?
My classes were all downtown in the basement of a local, I can't even remember what building it was or what it is now, but off of 6th Street down there. And I was, got opportunity to work with a professor who was teaching a servant leadership class, and it changed everything for me.
The class itself?
It did, yeah. I think I had spent my career trying to climb the career ladder for me, for my own financial stability, kind of maybe some for ego. Like I wanted that bigger job, the bigger
Well, I think we all get that.
Sure. And this professor at Covenant got a hold of my heart on this idea of servant leadership.
Well, explain that a little bit. And a lot of people know the term servant leadership. And if you would explain, the class and the professor's approach, but how it really grabbed you and really changed your mindset.
Yeah. Well, I think I had spent a lot of my career telling people what to do. like giving them direction. And in manufacturing, it's pretty simple. Like you need to do A, B, and C to get that quality product. What I didn't really see or experience was, how do you invest in people for them to thrive? What do they need to feel supported? What do they need to feel seen and heard? And I think that's what I really learned at Covenant, is how you lead is a direct reflection of your core values. And I knew in for-profit manufacturing, there was a lot of things that I didn't want to be like that boss. I learned a lot from those who I didn't want to be like, and I learned a lot from those I wanted to emulate. Like I wanted to, oh gosh, I know how that made me feel. How do I make others feel that way? And I think the experience at Covenant just really solidified that.
Was there a boss or even your professor that you look back on and say, not only learned a lot, but that was a mentor?
Oh, sure. Yeah, definitely. In McCain Food World up in Wisconsin, a gentleman by the name of Brian was just so instrumental in helping me develop as a leader, a caring leader, as a thoughtful leader, as a strategic leader. And then coming back to Covenant, and I'm not going to remember the professor's name, but that professor there was just life-changing for me.
What was it, and I'm going to use Brian as an example, what was it that he would do that you identified was different than other managers or leaders you had in some of the jobs you had that really took you and said, okay?
Well, I think the first thing is when I was negotiating salary, when I was getting ready to go to work for them and negotiating my salary, my compensation, he immediately said, what would it take for you to feel valued? And we could just table this conversation. Like, I don't want to undercompensate you where you always think I'm not getting paid for what I deserve.
Yeah.
And I just named it, and he said, if I give you that, you feel like you are valued at the level of experience you have. And I was like, absolutely. That was the first thing. He saw me, he heard me, and he gave me what I needed. Never felt undervalued as an employee. So
he took it from an adversarial discussion to let's get you where you're happy with what it is, and never questioning whether we value or not.
Right. I mean, my first day on the job, I felt valued. I wasn't like, gosh, I'm going to have to prove myself so I can get more money. I never had that worry. I just felt like he knew what he was getting, and I knew what I could offer, and we were in the middle, and it made me feel on day one that I was appreciated.
Mm-hmm. And how do you take that, what you learned from that, and implement that to what you do today?
I think the biggest thing that like I said, he made me feel valued. For me, as a great leader, make sure their employees feel seen, that they feel heard. Yeah, they feel valued. Compensation is one way to help employees feel valued, but also, in terms of helping build pathways for them to expand their leadership abilities. I think for me, he did that for me. He saw what I brought to the table in terms of experience. He also saw my potential. And I think that's what I try today to do, is really see what people bring to the table, but what are they passionate about? What is their potential? Do they strive to be the next CEO or CFO or COO? And how do we build a pathway for them to get there? And that might mean they don't work for me. Mm-hmm. That might mean that they go and they run another great organization or company in our community. And you got to be okay with that as a leader, is celebrating their successes no matter where it takes them.
Well, and that's one thing that's always gotten me when someone is the leader of the team, or they've got employees working for them, and someone comes and says, you know what, you've been great to me, but I've got this great opportunity. I never understood people getting upset, because I always thought it was our job to help people get to where they want to go.
Yeah, I think I probably wear both of those hats. I definitely feel the hurt and the pain and upset, but I also equally feel like celebration for them and proud of them. I think when people get upset, for me, it's more because I love them and I love spending time with them and doing great work together, and I'm going to miss that. They're going to leave a gap in my work day. So
it's that connection, that personal
connection. Yeah. It's happened to me several of my careers and opportunities where I've lost a person on my team that I was just devastated. And it wasn't that I didn't want them to go on and do great things. The cheerleader in me is cheering them on. My heart's just a little broken because I've lost that special person in my day-to-day.
So you graduate from Covenant. where does all this take you now?
Yeah, well, I got to go back for a moment because I start Covenant and I'm looking for purpose in life and I'm trying to figure it out. And I see an ad in the Times Free Press for the Chattanooga Area Food Bank. So now I'm at Covenant. My daughter's grown. I'm just kind of living my best life. And I'm like, I just want to do something with purpose. And I see this ad for Director of Operations, Chattanooga Area Food Bank. And it basically is everything I've ever done in manufacturing: warehousing, logistics, safety, quality, running a food bank warehouse. And I'm like, wow, I could do that.
Yeah.
So I sent in a resume. Back then, you had to mail it in. So I had to go find some resume paper and a stamp and mail it in to a lady.
Golly, that linen paper.
I know. Yeah, I think I still have some of that. But
what year is this?
Oh gosh, 2011. So I'm slated to graduate from Covenant in May of 2012. I survived another 3 years in the textile industry down in Dalton and in Bridgeport, Alabama, and I applied for this job at the food bank thinking I want to do something that has purpose. It's in Chattanooga. I mean, why not? And so I get a phone call from a lady by the name of Claire Sawyer. She's now retired, ran the food bank for a lot of years. She still volunteers with us on Fridays. And she offered me this job, and I was like, I could do this. Why are people hungry? Why wouldn't they just work 2 and 3 jobs? That's what I did.
Yeah.
I had this very short-sighted perception of what hunger looked like in our community.
Well, and if you can talk about that a little bit, because you bring out an interesting point. Because you've had a hard scramble life, and you've figured it out, and you're doing all these things. So I imagine, and it wasn't until you said that I'm like, well, I could see that perspective. You're like, well, I did this, and I don't need to go to the food bank, so why can't you do that?
Exactly, and I learned really quickly, working directly with neighbors experiencing hunger, that not everyone had that ability. Whether it was physical ability, whether it was transportation, whether it was childcare, all the things that enabled me to work 2 and 3 jobs when I needed to, because I had a mom that would watch my child. Mm-hmm. I had a reliable car. I was able to do these things. And for a lot of folks experiencing hunger, they may have physical disability or emotional or mental disability. Or they're in a place that no matter how hard they fight, they're still struggling. And so for me, it was real eye-opening to understand why the food bank was so necessary. And, I just learned that from experiences and conversations with neighbors.
Mm-hmm. So she offers you the job at Director of Operations? She offers me
the job. I start October 11th of 2011. And I'm like living my best life, Mike. I'm going to work at the food bank, and I'm going to night school at Covenant College. And January comes, and I feeling something and made an appointment with the doctor. And I went into the doctor on the 14th of January, 2012. Been at the food bank about 3 months, and doctor shook her head and said, "This feels like breast cancer."
Oh, you got to be kidding.
And I'm like, why, God? I got my life is settled. My daughter is grown. I've got this great job. I'm finally going to get my degree. Why now? Why me? And I guess God said, why not you?
Yeah.
You're resilient. I'm not going to give you anything you can't handle. And the diagnosis was much worse than what they had anticipated. It was late stage breast cancer. It went from a partial lumpectomy to a full mastectomy with chemo, with radiation, pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. And I had hungry people to feed. I didn't have time to be sick. And I guess all those years of fighting to survive, I just had that same mentality of I'm going to beat this. I'm going to survive this. And I'm going to get that college degree. I don't care if I live 3 months with one, but I'm dying with a degree on the wall. Because I could see the finish line. The finish line was May 5th. And, here I am starting chemo in February and trying to run the food bank, and my hair's falling out. And I just kind of told the guys in the warehouse, and I told the staff and the board that, don't ask me how I'm doing, because that just makes it worse for me. Just let's talk about it unless I want to talk about it. And I would go to chemo, and I'd go back to the food bank. And unlike most folks who were nauseous or went to bed and slept for days, God gave me the strength to just get back in there and keep going.
So you'd do hours of chemo and then go back to work?
Go back to the work at the food bank. And at one point, I think I had 9 surgeries, and my mom was staying with me. And there were days I couldn't drive, or there were days I couldn't carry anything because of the surgery. My mom would come to work with me. She'd carry my briefcase and my laptop, and she'd go out there and sort food while I worked. And
Wow.
made it through the chemo and made it through Covenant College and graduated with distinction on May 5th with no hair. I just remember walking across that stage because I never got to walk across the stage as a high school graduate because I graduated in summer school. There was no graduation ceremony. And I thought, I don't care that I don't have any hair, but I'm walking that stage
Good
today.
for you.
And I did with the tallest high heels I'd ever owned in my life. And I thought, well, if I'm going across the stage and I fall, at least, that'll be good entertainment for years to come. But graduated from Covenant College on May 5th, 3 weeks before I turned 40 to the day.
How angry were you when you were diagnosed? I mean, 'cause I'm listening to your story. It's not been easy. And it's like, okay, here's one more thing. Here's one more challenge for you.
I think that anger came early on because originally you're told, oh, lumpectomy, maybe a little radiation, and then another test, another biopsy, another scan. Oh, well, we're probably going to have to do chemotherapy. Oh, we're not going to be able to save them. You're going to have a full reconstruction. Like the anger came from just not knowing what you're fighting.
Yeah.
Like you didn't know what you were fighting, so you didn't know how to fight. You didn't know how long to prepare to fight for.
Is it a drip by drip information kind of thing?
Yeah. And I just remember thinking, if I could just figure out what it is I'm fighting and how much fight I need, I'll manifest the energy to get through this. And I think once I accepted that God's not going to give me anything I can't handle, and no matter the outcome.
Did you ever doubt that, though? I mean, because I hear you say that, and I hear people say that, but at some point you go, I got enough.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely had a lot of conversations with him questioning why.
Yeah.
And why it just couldn't be a little bit easier for me. And then I realized that the lessons I learned during that time, if I could share them with anyone that doesn't have to go through all the pain and the hurt, it just puts life into perspective. Like the clarity post-breast cancer for me in terms of purpose and kindness and being a good human. Like everyone needs that reminder, hopefully not in such a catastrophic way, but it was life-changing for me in that it just changed my whole perspective.
Yeah. And that's what I was going to ask you is how do you look at life differently today and not just with your at the food bank and interactions with people who need help, but just in general.
Yeah, I think I think the food bank is just where God meant for me to be, and it's what I do. It's not who I am, although sometimes those lines get a little blurry.
Sure.
But I remember like going to the doctor's office and starting the radiation treatments and doing all that. And they scheduled my first radiation treatment. My mom had went back to Wisconsin by that time, and so I had a large group of friends that were rallying. And the day that I was scheduled to start radiation, I had a surgical challenge. I had some infection in one of the surgeries, and so the surgeon wanted me to come in, and he wanted to take a look at the scar. And he immediately admitted me into the hospital. It was heavily infected, and I just remember thinking, "Oh my God, I've got this other doctor's appointment. I've got to go to that." Well, I don't want to let that. And the nurse was like, "No, we'll let the doctor know you're not coming for radiation today. That you've been admitted." And, but we got to wait a couple hours before your hospital room's ready. And I was like, well, I'm going to go back to work and just let me know, when my room's ready so I can come back and get hooked up to these IVs for this infection. Because I felt fine, but it was, had a pretty bad infection. And they were like, yeah, you're not leaving the hospital. I said, well, can I go to the next floor? Because I've got a friend going through treatment. She's in a hospital room below me. And they're like, yeah, you can go down and hang out with her. And I just remember in that moment of like, I something bigger than me, the purpose, the purpose was bigger than me in that moment. I wanted to go back to work. They wouldn't let me. I wanted to go visit my friend who was also going through treatment. But I remembered a few weeks later when I started my radiation, I called to reschedule the appointment. And then the nurse that answered the phone, she's like, well, you didn't show up for the last one. And I was like, what do you mean I didn't show up? And I mean, she just lit into me about no showing. And I mean, just talk to me like I missed a a pedicure appointment or something.
Yeah.
And I thought, golly, I'm a young 40-something-year-old woman. What about all these older folks who maybe missed doctor's appointments? I said, this other nurse was supposed to call you and let you know I was coming. Well, she didn't. And I thought, wow, if you're in that business, when people are calling to make an appointment for a radiation, appointment,
which is a life and death thing.
Yeah, wouldn't you have more kindness and compassion? Some empathy. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry you were in the hospital. I hope everything's okay now. Not chastising me for missing an appointment.
She made it about her.
She did, and boy, did I let that doctor have it when I finally got his ear. Let me just share an experience with you. But I think in that, every one of those moments and memories along the way that were so pivotal for me, I think it really shaped how quickly our words and actions can affect others.
Yeah.
How she made me feel in that moment where she had a real opportunity to be kind and empathetic. And I think that's just something for me that translates over into everyday life, whether it's helping a neighbor down the street that might be 84 and just wants her turkey fried, and or just the work that I do every day, or just the kindness and compassion that we can prioritize over this divisiveness of this world today.
There's a saying that I've heard a few times, and I want to get it right, that people don't remember what you say. They remember how you made them feel.
That's right. And I remember how she made me feel that day, and I remember how bad bosses have made me feel over my career, and and I don't get it right every time. I would tell you that probably the staff of the food bank could tell you many times where I get it wrong.
Yeah.
And we all do, and giving ourselves space and place to fail forward.
Yeah.
Like I think we talked about, nothing's linear. A lot of failures in my career, failures in a marriage. I'm sure my daughter would say failures as a mom. But every one of them is an opportunity to grow and learn and be better.
Yeah. And that's the important point, is learning from those challenges. And you had a ton of challenge, more than your fair share, to be fair to say. But you get on at the food bank, you start as director of operations, and now you're president and CEO.
Yeah, that was some fun years. I spent 5.5 years on the operations side under some pretty phenomenal leadership across the Feeding America network, and then within our food bank. And we were having a lot of successes, and we were being recognized across the country as one of the leading food banks. And it was a great learning experience for me. It was great to be out in the community and to understand kind of our ability to really help others not just eat today, but build pathways to stability for other single moms or grandmas who might be going through some type of health issues and things. But things happen, and at the food bank, we had some leadership changes. I was growing as a leader, and I needed more. And I didn't see my path and my next career step within the food bank. So I took an opportunity to become the CEO of Girls Inc. of Chattanooga in 2017. And you talk about a humbling experience.
I bet. Yeah.
No one prepares you for the role of the CEO of a small nonprofit. One day you're working with the girls directly, leading after-school programs. The next day you're trying to raise money. The next day you're building, multi-year budgets and strategic plans. And
you're wearing every hat.
You're wearing every hat in those small nonprofits, and I have so much mad respect for all of our leaders across our communities that wear those hundreds of hats every day and just try to figure out how to get it done with less. And what I really loved about my experience at Girls Inc. was, growing up as a single mom with a lot of barriers. First one in the family to go to college, being a mom at 17, a failed divorce. Like, these were all barriers that I could easily sit here today and say kept me from being successful. Or how do we avoid those barriers, or eliminate those barriers, or build pathways around those barriers, or knock those barriers down? And so working in an organization whose mission was to help girls be strong, smart, and bold, like, that was incredibly rewarding and fun.
How long did you do that?
3.5 years.
And then the food bank draws you back?
Yeah, 2020. 2020 happens. The pandemic shuts the world down in March of 2020. Our after-school programs for our girls were no longer operating. We couldn't go into schools because schools weren't operating. So we were trying to figure out, how do you support girls ages 5 to 18 when they're at home, when a lot of times the nourishment they need, the love, the attention, the education they need is coming from school and these after-school programs. And so we were trying to figure all that out, and I had the opportunity to work with great leaders there. Takora was and still is one of my heroes, or sheroes as we call them in Girls Inc. world. But then I got a call that the food bank needed a CEO. And I was like, oh, wow, I could go home.
Yeah.
And in that moment when I thought about the food bank as my home, I knew God had a plan for me.
Yeah. Before we run out of time, I want to make sure we talk enough about the food bank because of the great work you guys are doing. And I know we just came off of, and we're recording this in December, came off of Share Your Christmas and that success. Just give a quick thumbnail of what the food bank is and what the food bank does, not just for Chattanooga, but it's regional, right? Right,
yeah. And I think that's, for us, it's 20 counties. So I talk about the food bank and I talk about neighbors experiencing hunger in Grundy County on the top of Mount Eagle, or out in the rural areas around the Ocoee, or down into North Georgia where the Buc-ee's is, and 20 counties, 7,000 square miles. And I think, thumbnail view is the food bank operates because of and in support of 200 food pantries, most of them faith-based food pantries, soup kitchens, shelters, veteran centers, child and student feeding programs in schools and college campuses. We're really quietly operating behind the scenes to aggregate and distribute millions of pounds of food every month to those heroes on the front lines in each of these communities, trying to help those who need it. And it's been an organization that I've seen almost triple in size since 2011. But we're more than just feeding people. We really are looking at how do we shorten the line and bring stability to neighbors who are facing crisis, because food insecurity and hunger are usually a symptom of bigger challenges. How do we shorten the line and work with other nonprofits? And then how do we end the line, frankly? If we're going to dream big, I'm hired to be a leader. It's not just doing what we do today, but how do we do what this community and the communities across our 20 counties need in the next 3 to 5 years to feed the line, shorten the line, and address the systemic issues that are perpetuating poverty and food insecurity. Mm-hmm. We need strong workforce to have strong economies. We need strong workforce. We need strong schools. We need education. And so for the food bank to have a seat at those tables and have those conversations with other like-minded business leaders across our communities, it's just been a game changer.
In your role as CEO, it's very public-facing, and a lot of what you've done throughout your career has been more of the support. Has it been a difficult transition for you to be more public-facing and be part of those in-depth conversations, or has it come more natural? Yeah,
no, I definitely think it was absolutely a challenge, and I think if especially women, if they're listening, is the imposter syndrome, Mike. Oftentimes not growing up in Chattanooga, not going to school in Chattanooga, like feeling like an outsider sometimes when you're at a table, like you worry and wonder that people think you're an imposter. Like, I'm not smart enough to be here. I'm not, I'm not of a certain family or certain background. I'm not young enough. I'm not, degreed enough. I've struggled into this role, like reminding myself that they saw my potential and hired me to be this role. And people facing hunger are counting on me to be confident and bold. Like, I have to overcome those fears and lack of confidence to be able to be in this role. And, it's not a wake up every day and start over from zero. I definitely feel more competent and comfortable and confident today than I did even 5 years ago. But it's something I think women, we often struggle with is, this imposter syndrome. And should I be here?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you've had a heck of a career. I mean, anyone who's listening to this is going to go, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Before I get to the last question, I do need to remind my listeners who makes all this possible. And it is a big thank you to Rockpoint Bank. Rockpoint Bank from Chattanooga for Chattanooga. I've got a standard last question I ask everyone, but I'm going to change it a little bit for you. I generally ask, what would you tell your 25-year-old self is important for a happy life? But honestly, you lived a hell of a life up until you were 25. So I want you to think about your whole life. What's important for a happy life?
Oh, goodness. Happy lives are filled with people you love. And for my life to be joyful, and I often think about joy versus happy. Happy is a state of being in a moment of time. I'm happy right now because I'm hanging out with my friend Mike. But being joyful is being with people you love, doing what you love, appreciating all the little things that we often take for granted, whether that's the hot shower, the hot cup of coffee in the morning, or a good book at night. Like just appreciating and loving the things and the people that make your life full.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, a joyful life would be if I were called home tomorrow, I've lived a joyful life because I've got to do what I was called to do and be with the people I love every day. And I hope and pray that my joyful life is because I've made life better for others.
Your story blows me away. I appreciate you taking the time to share it.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks for listening to My Morning Cup, a podcast by Costa Media Advisors. If you like this episode, please share it with a friend. I release a new episode each week, so be sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple, Google, or wherever you listen to podcasts.